Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Culture group training. So glad that you're joining us, and this is Michael, and I'm Chris, and we're taking a look at what does it look like to have a gospel-centered small group. And there's a lot of different aspects to that, but today in particular, we're gonna look at what does it look like to be on mission, to have gospel-centered mission. And so we talked to a few small group leaders about what that looks like in their groups. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll talk about it a little bit in just a minute.
Gospel centrality is seeing, pretty simply, all of life through the cross. That the finished work of Jesus doesn't just impact where I go when I die, it impacts everything that I do while I live. It's not just a heaven thing, it's a every moment thing. And once you have that filter, you live in kind of a freedom between the two realms of, man, I'm so broken that Jesus had to die for me, and I'm so loved that Jesus died for me. And so it kind of helps you live in the sweet spot of who Jesus actually said that you are as a result of what he did for you.
One of the things that I think is important for us is that if we're going to be people who are really about mission, is we need to see ourselves as envoys of the gospel to whatever environment that God has placed us in already. God didn't just place you in your neighborhood and on your block for just a random reason or for no reason at all, but rather God placed you there because he knows that you can be a light to the people that live on your street. God placed you in your workspace, whatever workspace that is, to be somebody who's going to those people. What I find over and over again is that people sometimes block out or separate their Christian life and that sphere from their secular life. And so they're like, man, all I know is Christians, but they're really only talking about the people that they do church with, but they're not talking about the people who are in their workplaces and workspaces and even play spaces. One of the best things you can do is encourage your people just to live missionally, to walk into every room and go, why has God placed me in this place? And what does he want me to do? How does he want me to be somebody who images the gospel?
A lot of times when people think about mission, a lot of Christians feel guilty because, I've had small group leaders ask me before, they'll say, my group knows a lot about the Bible and we've been doing Bible study for a long time, but people just aren't really evangelistic and they're not out in their community and people are not engaging others with the gospel or, sharing the love and the message of Jesus Christ. And I'm just, what do you want me to tell them? What should my Bible study tell them to do that's going to get them motivated? And almost all the time, my answer to that question is nothing. That the Bible study environment, and when I'm talking especially to a Bible study leader, I'm saying it generally when we're not living on mission for God's kingdom, it's not because we don't know what God calls us to do. It's not a knowledge problem. It's that we're not motivated to actually be living on mission the way that God has called us to do. The issue is a want to problem in the heart, not a I don't know what I should do problem of the head.
All right, so gospel-centered mission. And I think this one in particular speaks to what is the goal of your small group. Because as a small group leader, we have different goals. Community is a goal. We want to get together. We want to gather for community. Obviously, Bible study is a goal to learn more about what does the Bible say. But really, it's about being on mission. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? What does that mean to be on mission as a small group?
It means that you understand that not only your individual mission from Jesus is to go and make disciples, your corporate mission from Jesus is to go and make disciples. When Jesus talked about the fact that you are the city on the hill, you're the light of the world, you're the salt of the earth, this is a collective statement that he's saying. It's not that he is necessarily saying you, each individual, you are the salt, even though that's true. He's looking at all of his people together and saying, no, you all together, you are the salt of the earth. So we really start to drift when we think that the highest end of something like community is just that we have good friends. It's not. That is important, but it is important to the extent that we are extending the gospel message and making disciples of other people. So our community that we have, if it's really gospel-centered community, ought to be a community that is on mission. That means, among other things, it shouldn't be a closed community. It should be welcoming, It should be hospitable, it should be understanding, it should be compassionate, it should be motivated, and it should be growing, like going ever outward.
That's good. I think as a small group, we think that we have this closed group.
Right.
But we should be open to whatever it leads us to, whoever it leads us to. So we're training our group members that they're to make a difference wherever they find themselves.
Right.
Not just at church or in the small group, but in their workplace. And Mike talked about that a little bit. But everywhere we're supposed to share the gospel.
We are. It's an issue, I think, of awareness. If the Bible is true, you know, Paul talks about in Ephesians chapter 2 that it is by grace we have been saved through faith. And a lot of times we stop there. There's a third component to that in Ephesians chapter 2. Paul says you've been saved by grace, you've been saved through faith, and you've been saved unto good works that God planned beforehand for us to walk in. So that means if I'm a Christian, then I can, with full confidence, walk through my everyday life expecting that the Lord has already put good in front of me to walk in. So the issue is not whether or not I'm going to have an opportunity today to share the gospel or to demonstrate the gospel to somebody else. The question is how aware I am of the opportunities that are in front of there. And that same mindset ought to be in place in a group as well. It's a confidence that the Lord has planned good for us to do. Now let's be aware of the opportunities that are there.
So that's a little bit about gospel-centered mission. But if you'd like to know a little bit more, maybe some practical tips on how you can help your group be on mission, Michael and I wrote an ebook called the Small Group or Gospel-Centered Small Group. So you can check that out. It's a free download. The URL is on the screen. So you can download that and just get a little bit more about how do we get our group on mission.